Hi, I'm Laura Brunkala.
And I'm Jenny Skiffington.
And this is Propicks. We are doing a very special episode today for episode number 3, which is a little early for a special episode, but we had something happen that calls for it.
Yes, the prolific, iconic David Lynch passed away January 15th. And to honor him, we wanted to do a very special episode. Believe it or not, neither of us had ever seen Twin Peaks.
Which is wild because we're both fans of that style of show. Jenny and I have watched all of the X-Files together, and so it's wild that we hadn't seen Twin Peaks.
Right, and it takes place in Northwest Washington, where I come from, Snoqualmie Falls. Right away, I was like, oh, this looks like home. It's a mystery adventure, but it has that Lynch slow, moody feel too.
Yes, we have a lot of the kind of tones that put you in the mood for a mystery.
Yes, he has that way of these soft, slow webs that slowly reveal.
And it definitely has its Lynchian director moments and acting moments.
Yes.
Let's talk about comps. You guys know we do comps every week on the show, which is if you watch these shows, you will probably like Twin Peaks.
Yes. Well, the obvious one being the X-Files.
So Chris Carter has done many interviews where he speaks about how much Twin Peaks was an influence and an inspiration on the X-Files, and you can really see it and feel it, and not only the characters, the way it's shot, even some of the music used.
Yes, yeah, definitely the music, that moody, eerie music.
And fun fact, we were skimming through some IMDb stuff. David Duchovny was in an episode of this, so
yeah, we'll have to keep watching to see where he comes in.
Yeah, we're gonna have to explore that. Maybe we'll shoot an email off to David and be like, "Hey, how did this happen?"
Yeah. Another one that comes to mind for me is early Coen brothers. There's this movie called Blood Simple. Their first film. It's this kind of moody mystery, and there were just certain elements where Blood Simple was coming to mind. Maybe Stranger Things even.
Yeah, Stranger Things, Supernatural, both those shows in tone and kind of the mystery elements.
I mean, I think some Amblin films.
That's true.
Very quirky. I love all those Amblin late 80s movies. There's one called Batteries Not Included that's really quirky. It's an Amblin film. This apartment complex is going to be torn down, but then these little alien creatures come.
Speaking of aliens,
quirky,
even E.T., just the vibe of the small town, the kids on the bikes, the really distinct characters, or okay, this is a reach. Tell me what you think of this. Because I'm speaking to character uniqueness.
Yeah.
Gremlins has a ton of the dad as the really quirky inventor.
Also Amblin. Yeah.
That's what I was you're right about the Amblin thing. It does have this Amblin vibe. So this is actually written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. He had a writing partner on this. The first episode is actually an hour and a half in runtime, which is a feature film.
Yeah, it's essentially a movie as the first episode, and there are, 8 episodes total in the first season, so we are on the edge of our seat waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Even though this came out in 1990, we're a little late to the game.
We're catching up on probably the most iconic David Lynch series. One of the best things about David Lynch, I feel is he really takes his time telling a story, and this starts with a murder, if you guys haven't seen it, and you're as late as we are to the show, and we get to see the whole town grieve. And part of this that makes it so cool is that Twin Peaks is alive and its own. We talked on Caddo Lake about how the location is a character. Right. This, in location terms, it's not and it is a little bit of they talk a lot about the Douglas firs is a big part of it.
And the Snoqualmie Falls right above the lodge, yeah.
But the townspeople and the town and the people who live in it are a character in this.
Oh, absolutely. I grew up in a very small town, and so I really resonate to stories like this because there's so much going on at all times, and everyone knows everyone. And so any kind of tragedy really affects the whole community in a really profound way. And I feel like this show did a really great job in sharing what that it feels like in a small town.
Yeah, and I really feel like, that's very true. Like, you grew up there, so you recognize that right away. I have been there a couple times to visit Jenny, and I think Lynch did such a good job of utilizing the feel of Washington State to create this world that these characters live in and where this mystery happens, because Washington has this, like, the entire state, it's so naturally beautiful, but it does have an underlying eeriness in there. You can talk about, there's a lot of like lore and local legends and things there that, you know, everybody has stories.
It just has a creepy, eerie vibe to it in general. I think it's all the fog and the darkness that we have most of the year, but yeah, it definitely lends itself to a story like this.
And the town feels remote, so like speaking to that darkness and the nature, you feel when you're even within towns in Washington a sense of isolation, and you are in this little community where everybody knows each other. I was telling Jenny when I was looking up some of the characters on the IMDb, it's not quite revealed everyone who's related to everyone.
Right. Yeah,
Small town.
Small town. Yes.
We get so many cool and interesting secrets. We talked a lot about secrets while we were
like
watching.
Everyone is cheating on everyone. There's like tons of secrets. The casting was amazing. Yes.
Yeah, we should talk about some of the cast. It's like opens with these huge characters.
So many quirky, interesting characters. I love Andy, who's this very emotional officer who's crying at the crime scene.
And Harry Goaz does a great job playing him. He's this big, tall, huge man.
Yes, and he's just breaking down, crying. And also his girlfriend or wife character is adorable. She's the dispatcher secretary at the police station.
She's so adorable. Quirky and fun. I think her name is Lucy on the show. And she just has, like, the cutest voice and all these really special moments that I do feel like David Lynch was so particular about, like, it has to be this way.
Yeah, so Kyle MacLachlan, of course, is one of the famous actors from this show. I also love him in Sex and the City as Trey McDougal.
In this, he plays the FBI agent, Special Agent Dale Cooper.
He's always, like, chatting with his voice memos to Diane, and he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, and if you guys have seen the X-Files, you know that Mulder has those like sarcastic, witty humor moments. Dale Cooper's a little bit more on the nose with his weirdness. He's a strange guy, and you love his weirdness, but towards the end, you get a little bit more of the comedic moments.
The little whistle he pulls out or something when they're sitting, and then the donuts. I love
Get me a donut.
The lined up donuts. Another really interesting character that I'm curious to see where she goes is Audrey, this troublemaker, kind of mischievous young girl who works up at the lodge.
Audrey is such a mischievous, fun character, and so predictably unpredictable.
Yeah. Sherilyn Fern does an amazing job playing her. I remember seeing her, there was this made-for-TV movie about the life of Elizabeth Taylor, where she plays Elizabeth Taylor, and so I recognized her from that right away, but she is so much fun in this part.
Because this is so much like a feature film, everybody gets their little moments to shine. We really see some rich character development in this first episode again. Characters like Bobby. Yeah, Dana Ashbrook plays Bobby Briggs. And, whoa.
Oh, the crazy boyfriend.
Crazy boyfriend. And my gosh, does he have some acting moments.
Yes.
Some big asks, and what a delivery.
He brings this intensity. Oh my gosh, the scene in the jail at the end.
Yes.
So intense with all the boys. I really loved the actress who played Donna, Laura Flynn Boyle. I had never seen her in anything before, but she brings this, like, innocence that is super intriguing, and I'm excited to see where her character goes.
Yeah, her performance, I feel like, is one of the ones you connect to the most as an audience. It's like not as out there, it's a little bit more grounded because her character calls for that.
And she has a lot more information than some of the characters about what may or may not have happened. So
really makes you want to know what's going on and what does she know. You have all these mini stories, and you're getting the slice of life of everyone in this town, and then there is this scene that's kind of at the climax. I think it's at around the 45-minute mark, hour mark. We start to see the slow revealing of information from detectives to suspects, and from one townsperson to another townsperson. There's like some phone calls, especially the way the episode ends. You're like,
ooh, let's get together and talk. Everyone's meeting up at the Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. And you get some stunts in the Roadhouse.
Yeah, some stunts, a little musical sequence. You got to have a musical sequence with David Lynch. So,
and speaking of music, you all know Jenny and I are musicians and how important music is to us, especially as filmmakers. David Lynch does something so special with the soundtrack of this entire first episode. You can tell how much care went into what music was cut when. There's some, like, at the Roadhouse, we get the Lynch bar singer.
Yeah, so you gotta have the bar singer in a Lynch film,
Of course.
It's like this ethereal musical spectacle, where you feel, it's like almost, his films have a dreamy quality to them.
Yeah.
There's always these dreamy sequences, yes.
It does feel like you're, like, dreaming.
Like in Mulholland Drive, when they go to that theater and that woman is singing and they're crying, like, there's just, you feel like you're in this dream sequence.
You do, and we kind of talked about that in Cuddle Lake, how you can't dream up M. Night Shyamalan. Like, David Lynch is doing the dreaming for you. So.
Transcendental meditation.
And then one of the other cool things we noticed watching the end credits of this is that David Lynch wrote the lyrics to the music, which makes me want to actually go back and listen to those lyrics even closer.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I am already like, when do we get to watch the next episode?
And we're probably going to watch it after we tape this.
So one of my well, you know me, I love old things. I'm such like an old film nerd and all of that. So I love finding something from the past that I haven't discovered yet, and I get to see it as if it's something new. So I'm really excited to finish Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and this for me was really special given that the reason I got so into the X-Files was I watched it with my dad, who passed away a couple years ago. And as soon as I finished this, I was like, oh, I wish I watched this with my dad.
Yeah, he would like it.
Yeah, it was really special for me to see the origins of a show that meant so much to me, and to see David Lynch's genius really come to create this really unique thing and why it's so special.
So we were fortunate enough to get an interview with one of the crew members from Twin Peaks. So please enjoy.
Well, we're so excited to talk to you, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate you hopping on the call with us. For Jenny and I, this was our first time watching Twin Peaks, which is crazy because I'm a huge X-Files fan, and like I know how much this show influenced the X-Files. And Jenny's from Washington.
Yeah. Seattle is quite a place.
It is, yeah. I'm from. I don't know if you've ever been to the San Juan Islands.
Yes,
but
we shot there.
Oh, did you?
Oh, that's
cool. Do you remember which island?
I think it was Vashon.
Yeah, I was like, it looks exactly like home. I'm from a really tiny town called La Conner with like 1,000 people. So I loved Twin Peaks because I was like, I could see this taking place in my town. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
In the pilot, the beginning of it, where Lance played he was going out fishing, and there was this giant log on the beach, and he saw the plastic the body wrapped in plastic.
Yeah. Yes.
That was Vashon Island.
Oh, that's awesome. I was going to say, I was like, this looks just like home. Yeah, that's awesome.
The weirdest thing was we were all standing there thinking about the shot, and these big ripples started washing onto shore. You could see the island. And they was going, is there a whale there? Is there a whale here? And it was a submarine, a military submarine going through there.
Well, tell us about how you, first of all, a little bit about you and, how you came into DPing and cinematography. And then let us know how you got involved with Twin Peaks and David, because I'm so curious about just the whole connection.
Yeah. Well, it was a long story because it took me a long time to break into the industry. But basically, I was a electromechanical packaging designer on the Apollo to the moon. Really exciting stuff. And I only got to high school, and but I took 7 years of drafting and broke into the aerospace business and worked my way up. I was a kid. I was like 24 years old, 23, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm doing printed circuit board, learning how to do printed circuit board design, some guy took me under his wing and said, "Hey, you ask great questions. We want you, since you're not a graduate and you're not an engineer and you're a layperson, you ask the right questions, and we want you to write the manual for a computer." This was old hardwire computer back in the days of components. And write the manual for the sailors who are going to repair that, check the fire control system, that everything was okay for the Polaris missile out of the Polaris submarine, the atomic missile. I went from there to even more difficult stuff and got on the command module program. And then the industry kind of slowed down, for there were millions of us working on the race to the moon. And I went into avionics. And there I met a young guy and he said, "Hey, I have to shoot a film." And I was going to the Los Angeles Art Center College of Design. Anyway, he was a hustler. And he said, "Let's go shoot this." He says, does Art Center have a film school section there? And I said, "No, it's just all fine arts." He said, "Well, let's lie and say that you're a filmmaker, and let's go shoot this boat race at Lake Havasu." Neither of us had a clue of what was what. And we went to Burns and Sawyer there in Hollywood, and we rented a 16 millimeter Bolex wind and a Arri S, I think, 16 millimeter. He said, I said, "How does all this work?" He said, "Well, see this dial on this meter that I'm holding this." He's holding the meter in his hand. And he said, "That arrow will tell you where you set this stop." And he turned the lens and said, "This is the stop." And I went, "Well, that's kind of simple. That's kind of sounds easy." And so we learned how to change the magazines in a changing bag that night. We drove up, shot the movie. And I loved the processing. And I said, "Well, gee, I don't have to be a fine arts painter. I'll start shooting a camera and putting films together." So that was it. I got bit. My whole family and all my in-laws, including my wife at the time, freaked out. She goes, "I had a salaried job. I had 40 guys working under me, working on the Vietnam helicopter, the motor, and I had this. It wasn't a cush job, but I had salary and guaranteed, and I just left it. But I starved for 15 years no one was going to teach me anything. I didn't know what to do. You had to just go out and shoot. I wrote a silly film called Machismo.
Oh,
and we got it. We found a doctor. We got it in the can for $50,000.
Wow.
And when we finished, it was $80,000. And we put it all together, and it showed as a second run with something Billy the Kid or something in Hollywood. It hit the market in LA, and we tested it in Fresno, and they loved it. And you can still buy it. They're still selling it somewhere. And that moved us up to, we were editing and starving and cutting other people's films. I learned how to do all of that stuff to feed my family. A friend of ours who used to shoot surfer movies, we were just joking. We were using his office to cut. We said, "Hey, you know anybody that's got a couple $100,000 to make a film?" Because, "Yeah, I do. I just left a meeting that I didn't want to do it." We talked to them, and we said, "Well, what do you think you want the budget?" And they said, "Well, how about $400,000?
Wow.
And we're talking in 1960s. So it's the only fourth movie I ever shot in my life. And I said, "I want a Panavision anamorphic camera." I had no idea how to work it. We just faked it till we made it. And then we had Dennis Hopper's cronies in our film, and we were shooting in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And they came to our set and started passing out acid to my crew and cast.
How did that go?
And I'm straight arrow. I'm right. I still had my pocket protectors on my shirt. You know. I was just a nerd, and I'm still a nerd. And worked hard, made anything that anybody wanted me to shoot, I'd shoot. Independence with some old black and white stars and stuff. It was great. John Ireland, John Carradine, Faith Demurg.
Yep. And you just loved it. You just absorbed it all.
You have to love it to be in the business.
Gosh, isn't that the truth?
Because it's tough. It's getting even tougher.
What a journey you had to become a cinematographer. So then how did Twin Peaks come into your orbit?
Okay, so in Twin Peaks, Stu Siegel was an arm business from Stephen Cannell. And he was down in San Diego doing, I think Stephen Cannell was doing A-Team and Hunter and the Fernando Lamas on the bike, something. I'm going to produce one of Stephen's series called Hunter.
Okay.
And I know you can shoot better and faster. Coming from the independents, I couldn't afford lights. So I got this, I had my union card for 5 years and I hadn't worked yet. I couldn't get a union job. I was doing independents all the time.
Yeah.
And so he said, "You still got your card?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm paying my dues." He said, "Well, come on down. I want you to do my series." And it was Hunter. I had to take over. Stephen Cannell liked me. And he said, "I want you to shoot my pilot, Stingray." It was the break. And I went to Europe, started spending money like a sailor. and then I came back and found out that I wasn't invited back because I had pissed off the production manager who was yelling at my gaffer, who was Vilmo Zsigmond's gaffer for years. And he helped me out doing a union show because I had no idea how to run a union show. Michael Mann saw Stingray, and he said, I want you to come to Vegas and shoot Crime Story, the second season of Crime Story. You can't say no to Michael Mann." And his brain goes 1,000 million miles an hour. And so I was there a year, put all these lights in. It was Vegas. It was all glitzy stuff.
Yeah.
And all I did was come in, add a little soft light somewhere here and there, and it looked great. And I was shooting Fuji. I was shooting fast. There's a saying, there's fast, there's good, and then there's what is it?
Affordable. Fast, good,
And cheap.
affordable.
Yeah, fast, good, and cheap. You can only have two of those. You can't have all three. And I used to say, I'm all three. I didn't know I had a 40-foot trailer full of a 40-foot trailer, the semi trailer. It was full of lights, and I said, I don't know how to use all those lights.
We watched Firewalk with me before the call today, and I really like a lot of the lighting in that. I kept saying to Jenny, I like the lighting. I like that scene when they're going up to the trailer, and he's like, where's the trailer? And he like walks around the outside, and the trailer's lit from the inside, but they're in like the shadow and stuff. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, that trailer thing worked out because they had something on the front windows of that trailer.
Yeah.
And it just can't, we shot that right at dusk. And that's the only thing. It was that was natural light when I shot it.
I love the lighting in that. I liked it so much. I said to Jenny while we were watching, I said, I really like this lighting.
Yeah, because I had to learn to go with the flow. Everybody, all the cameramen I knew, I didn't know too many cameramen because it was so competitive. No one talked to anybody over there. But it was like, as an independent, I would have to see. I'd find out what the show was about, where we were shooting, how many windows did it have, what's night and day, and then it was like I played chess with the sun.
We talk a lot about you guys really set the feel of the town and the school, the empty hallways. We love those shots. We thought those were so cool.
So Michael Mann I finished the set of Michael Mann, and that got me an agent. I had an agent. I had a small agent that her DP didn't want to do union. He was from Europe. He said, I do not like union. And so she said, you have your card. So do you want to have a meeting with Michael Mann? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And we met at Hugo's on Santa Monica there in Hollywood,
Still
West
there?
Hollywood.
Love Hugo's. Yeah.
And he was there picking up takeout to take to his family. We sat in this booth, and the meeting was like 5 minutes total.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't even a meeting. He's sitting there having a snack or something while he's waiting for the takeout, and sat in the booth. And he said, "Ron, I like your work. I like what you're doing. I want you to shoot my series. Here's what I don't want. I don't want you to hand me a mundane film, a series. I want you to take chances, be strong, be bold, and if you fail, I'll back you up."
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's like
Who
exactly
doesn't
what you want to
want
hear. That's
who
amazing.
doesn't want that? I said, Michael, I have 3 commercials to shoot. He said, I want you in Las Vegas in 2 days.
Oh,
And I went, and I told him that I had a job. He said, do you want to shoot my series or not? Oh, I had to call him up, say, I can't do this. I'm going to shoot a series with Michael Mann.
Yeah.
They didn't understand. They were a little pissed off at me because they like my work.
You can't make everybody happy, Ron.
I think
Not in Hollywood.
I think you made the right choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you made the right decision there.
So that gave me so my agent said, David Lynch wants to see you. So they sent me the script. I read the script, and it was Peyton Place in the woods. I took the script and I threw it in the trash. I said, I was getting too big for my britches after Michael Mann, I think. and I said, it doesn't make sense. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know the tone. I don't know. It doesn't say anything to me. And he said, take the meeting, Ron. And I said, he said, take the meeting. So I took the meeting, and I was going to blow, you can blow if you don't like the people, you can blow your interview really quickly. David looked at my demo reel, and my demo reel was all mostly blue and black and white kind of feeling. I had Michael Mann. I had some film, and it was mostly cool tones. And he just looked at me, and he talked. I liked this guy immediately because he talked like Jimmy Stewart. And like, Ron. And I can't do Jimmy Stewart. But so he said, Ron, do you have anything warm? And I said, warm. And I just finished a movie called Nightbreaker. It takes place in the 50s of the above ground testing of the atomic bomb. It was a kind of a really serious piece with Emilio Estevez. And Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen played a character. Anyway, so I had some work print from that, and they had transferred it onto tape then. So I had it on 3/4-inch tape. So I showed him that, and he goes, and it was warm. It had all this warm tone to it, and he goes, "Okay, that's warm." And so, and I got the job, but I still thought I didn't want the job. But I liked David so much, that his demeanor, it was just David, and not hard nose. I'm this, I'm that. It wasn't my cup of tea, and I didn't understand.
It's not for everyone by any means.
Yeah, no, he's got a group of people that understand him, and I wasn't one of them. And,
so you were familiar with him, but you had never met him before this meeting.
No.
Okay, yeah.
It just, and I said, it was just my psyche. I said, I'll fight it. I won't be, because everything I've done, I said yes to because I really liked the script and the tone and what it was about. And not to be a snob, but it just, I didn't want to be a normal cameraman that would just when I shot television, the reason Michael Mann liked it is because it didn't look like television.
So you're talking to David and you like the man, but you don't like the script. So did you take it?
Yeah. Yeah, the
I'm
first
glad that
3
you-
days we were a week behind,
Yeah.
Oh.
and they knew it. And the networks were giving them, pushing them. Fourth day of shooting, they threw that script away and started doing just ad lib. And what are we going to do for tomorrow? What are we going to do? And we finished the pilot that way, like independent filmmakers do.
Wow.
That's nuts.
And that's
so
when we
cool.
all bonded and stuff
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
We're all in it together in Seattle. It was great. So why David wanted it warm, he saw the way I handled warm, and he liked that kind of yellow orange look
Yeah.
a little bit.
Mhm.
And he said, "Oh, you got to shoot coral filters, Ron." And I said, "Okay." And I tried, and Fuji doesn't accept the coral filters. It was designed for Kodak. I was shooting different filters and this and that and stuff we'd sit every day in the screening room up in Seattle. And he goes, "No, Ron, that's not it. That's not
Find
my
that
warm."
perfect tone.
So what he wanted was we were going to shoot in a bucolic environment. And his whole thing after Blue Velvet, but he did Mulholland Drive, that it's ordinary people, but with unordinary circumstances that's hidden in their world, the darkness. David loves dark. He loves dark thinking because
He does a
like
transcendental meditation.
where you do the
Yeah.
meditation, you go down and he would do that every day at lunchtime when we were shooting.
Wow.
Yeah, so we bonded and we started and one time with the production designer, we were shooting the pilot, and the production is kind of misty, and production designer, she owned a wardrobe company, rental wardrobe and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
And Patty and David and I were sitting there talking, and it's misty, and we're waiting for some piece of equipment to come in during the day. And David said, "Patty, it's just you, Ron, and me. We could do anything." I thought that was pretty cool because David would say Patty had put something, I think it was a goose or something up on the gas station.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he said, "Patty, could you?" And he came up with this incredible thing. And Patty goes, "David, wake up. We're shooting it tomorrow." So, no, okay, Patty. But we had a lot of fun in there. So when I got the warmth, it was basically when I finally realized what he wanted was he wanted warmth into the dark black shadows for the exteriors.
Yeah,
Not
that
the
makes
interior.
sense.
Interiors, he wanted what he wanted in dark and stuff, but I wouldn't go that dark because at the time no one knew what film was going to look like. They wouldn't have screenings. When I got was David, we didn't go to a screening room every day. Technically, there's really big difference between film to video and then video to television. It's hard to get anything looking like anything because you have no control over transmission.
Yeah, and
And
how
so,
it's gonna
and I used to I'd have a knife ready to cut my throat when I saw it broadcast, to go, my career's over.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I'm sure it sounds like David, like he knows exactly what he wants, like has it in his head, and he's like, I want this, like, and only this.
so he goes, "Ron, is that?" And I lied to David. I mean, all the way through, I think all of the pilot and Firewalk with Me. He said, "Got to use those corals, Ron. See, I told you." But so when I asked the engineer who built that emulsion of Fuji 500 ASA, He said, add a double 85 correction filter. Other than a
Oh,
coral.
And it will have the same effect as the coral.
smart.
But it wouldn't, there's a thing called crosstalk in the emulsions because all the different layers that are in film as it gets exposed. And it was horrible. When I got into business, everything was designed for Kodak. So
Right.
the nickname for me was the Fuji boy.
Yeah.
And I broke the barrier every time I went to go work for a studio, they said you have to shoot Kodak because they had a film deal.
Oh, right.
And
Right.
Kodak,
Right. Yeah.
just
Course
under the
market.
table, little pay me back kind of stuff. And I wasn't that kind of guy. And I said, you can't do that. You cannot tell me an
What to
artist his tools, what brush to
Yeah.
use.
Right.
As an
And
artist.
I didn't do it to threaten them. I was going to sue them as a minority, David up against the Goliath.
No,
Sorry
but
about that.
the whole time David thought that you had this coral filter.
He got a little
that-
mad at me after I told him no.
That's
But
amazing, though, but
he
it
was
looked great. Yeah.
I wasn't going to sit there and explain the technology, although he would probably like it. But he liked the dailies, and that's all I cared about. So when I did that, David finally said, "That's it. That's the warm I'm." So that we continued, and it went where it went.
And you're discovering as you're going because you're
That's right.
all
We're all just winging it.
it
Everybody
sounds
was
like
winging it.
such a great time. Like a lot of
Yeah.
creative energy is just kind of thrown out there. Yeah.
It was the beginning of me working with David Lynch.
Okay.
But when we were shooting, and when he changed his mind he and Mark Frost decided they had to go with a different thing and still keep the humor, the very subtle dark humor in it.
Yeah.
The whole pilot, I had no idea what I was shooting, not a clue. It was all in their heads. This is how David kind of expressed the dialogue. Well, I was after we were behind and we were doing. There's a shot of the old mill, the wood cutting mill,
Yeah.
and so I shot that. It looks like I shot it in slow motion, but I didn't. It was just that big, far away, and it was big, and that smoke was just wonderfully rising up in the thing. But there was a river alongside there where they floated the logs in and they put them in the mill.
Cool.
So the title sequence in the pilot was just a pan down this river with Belafonte's music.
Right before the call, we watched it.
And so I had just finished Michael Mann, and someone interviewed me. They asked me, what's the difference between working with Michael Mann and David? And I said, well, when I was with Michael Mann, I felt like I was in a rocket going on the Bonneville Flats, 2,000 miles an hour. When I was with David, I felt like I was in a canoe drifting down a still lake.
I could see that. I love the time that you guys take to visually set everything up for that pilot. You really feel like you're like in Twin Peaks.
So as I was panning too fast, and David said, "That's too fast, Ron." And I went, so I thought I'd slow down. He goes, "No, that's still too fast." And the third time, I just couldn't. I said, "It'll start strobing," but I realized it wouldn't because I was panning in the direction that the water was moving. So I got to my limits, and he said, "No, that's not it, Ron." And all he said to me was, "Think underwater."
Just that.
And when you're in a pool and you're trying to work a run or go against the water and you're in slow motion, that was exactly what he needed to tell me. So he had that, and that's how he worked with the actors. It was like
Right.
in the same kind of situation. What David taught me that not to, if you come in with real preconceived ideas and you're going to stick to it, you're going to work twice or 50 times harder
Wow.
Instead
rather
of just
than letting
discovering
things
it.
go and actually understanding what's going on in the environment with everybody, the tone, because I directed for 10 years and you can feel when you're directing, you can feel the crew, anybody on the set looking at, well, let's see what kind of director he is. There's all
Yeah.
this mechanic, Francis
Style.
Coppola that I worked with,
Mhm.
he said the same thing. Dave, for instance, David said,
Yeah.
and there's a scene where the sheriff, his assistant, and this woman, and there's a deer head laying on the table.
Yeah.
The antler
Yeah.
sticking
Remember
out.
that?
And
Yes.
David said, do the same scene we just blocked out. And at the end of the scene, just all three of you at the same time look down at the deer. So why that happened was we got there early. The prop guy, the set dresser, was hanging that deer on the wall as a set piece.
Yeah.
And when we were there talking, and he comes running, he says, "Oh my God!" He said, "I'm so sorry, so sorry. I hung it up, and the wires broke, and I went out to get more wire." And David looked at him, and he said, "No, no, don't worry about it. We'll shoot it like it is."
Wow.
Just
And so when you see that scene, one shot, there's no cuts in it. It's the deer. They do their scene, and then they both look down at the deer. And it
and
was
it's
great.
unique. Yeah.
So he incorporated stuff like that. That's what he taught me.
Cool.
If you're ironclad and tight,
Yeah.
even when I did my two acting things, which I'll never do again, that I had a set thing, I had a set piece, and I went, what would David tell me and stuff. So
Yeah.
I kind of, relaxed and just actually listened to what the opposite actor I was talking to, and
Yeah.
actually listened to what she was saying.
Acting is reacting.
Well, and in any art, like yeah, like not holding so tightly, like you're saying.
Yeah,
So
otherwise
that
you're
like,
fighting yourself. You're
like
fighting
hold on
yourself.
to it loosely, but allow those discoveries, and that ends up being the fun elements.
Like
that
the
stick
best
out. Yeah.
shots, the most memorable moment.
Such a great story about the deer head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and the antithesis of that is that all of us started thinking, oh, everybody has to get weird.
I love that.
And so after we shot the pilot and they were doing the series, David called me up. He said, "Ron, would you go up to Seattle and shoot some establishing shots? You know where they all are, and you know the film, yada yada yada." And I said, "Sure, yeah, you bet." So I go up to this crew, and we're all having lunch between scenes. There was one payphone by the restrooms. Uh, First AD, I should say, who was kind of running us and stuff. We got to do this, we got to do that. He talked to David about something, and he said, "David wants to talk to you, Ron." So I go to the phone, and I said, "Hi, David," and he goes, and there wasn't any words mixed. He went, "Hey, how are you doing, Ron? How's your family? How that kind of stuff." This is exactly what he said to me, and I'll never forget this. He goes, "Ron, too weird. Think mysterious." And he hangs up on me.
And so it tipped over to too weird at a certain point. Yeah.
And so I go back, I'm talking to my camera assistant there. They were all local. And I told him the story, and the guy says, "Wow, David has someone that he says is too weird."
Right.
I've outdone him.
You would never think you would hear that from David Lynch.
Thank you for talking to us.
No,
Oh,
this is
It
amazing.
was a pleasure. I went, yeah, why not? Stuff. And
Thank you. Yeah, we
You
were
can't-
so excited telling
as you
everybody
can
about
tell, as you can tell, once you get me talking, I don't stop.
Hey, we love it. It's great for us.
I love hearing your story.
All right, thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you for thinking about me.
Of course. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this very special episode in honor of the legacy of David Lynch and all of the amazing work that he's left here for us filmmakers, creatives, anybody who's an inspired dreamer. He's just an amazing, amazing artist. And everyone says, please go meditate a little bit for him. He was really into transcendental meditation, if you didn't know. But yes.
If you guys are LA locals, a lot of people have been going to Bob's Big Boy. There's a memorial set up there. And they've been dropping flowers.
It's amazing the people that have been coming out. He was a regular at this diner, Bob's Big Boy.
I think people said he went every week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys want to pay respects and you're a Los Angeles local, stop by Bob's Big Boy, the very first one in Burbank. Tune in next week. We will be doing the TV show we had scheduled. So
Yes.
We'll see you guys next week. Join us on Propicks.